Right, here's the angle I've gone with for this. For my good point, I know later we're going to discuss Porby and Fnatic and all. I've got a specific, like, very, very narrow lens, though, that I want to bring in as a good point. Because I think one part about the Porby humanoid bizarre swap for summer that I think is actually a massive positive is just getting to see Razork with potentially a normal fucking mid laner. So it's going to be the same take as the Linkus one I just did, right? And people don't seem to appreciate this. Razork, the entire time he's been popping off in the LEC, played with Vethio and then Humanoid. Right? These are two of the most idiosyncratic mid laners probably ever to play in League. Every coach who's worked with them basically will tell you, like, oh, you have to sort of, again, it's like a hill slang, you have to like specifically learn their way of doing things and thinking and communicating. And bizarrely, they've also got completely different sort of swag. Like the Vethio one's sort of this weird thing where it's like, he's maybe not going to ask for what he needs, but he just needs certain things at certain points in the laning phase to get to the point of the game where he can carry. Humanoid's thing is this weird thing where it's like he will tell you once what he wants, but then if you can't do it exactly how he's thinking, he'll just sort of in his brain go like, well, I'm just going to proceed as I'm going to do it anyway and do whatever he's going to do. And then you just have to sort of hope at the end somehow the Nexus explodes and you're like, yeah, oh, we were on the same page, high five. Yeah, like, so if that doesn't work, you can see this is why the guy, I always say, he either goes from like the game goes awesome or he just looks completely disconnected. So if you are Razork, mate, the one thing I can tell you right now, I will guarantee this, is Porby will just be the kid in class who isn't raising his fucking hand and just stays quiet at the back of the class and no one picks on him. He's just going to come in, mate, and play probably like fucking Azir and stuff, just the most boring ass shit ever. Just do his job. He's Korean, so I doubt he's going to be super calming. I don't think there's any world where he's telling you, like, come to my lane. Like, in this scenario, if you're Razork, mate, the shackles are off. It's time to just play, again, just like with the Vitality example, time to just play jungle, mate. There's no weird considerations. But I assume he'll even be a skilled player, the middle laner. So I actually think it'll be very interesting and enlightening for Razork's career, because I think actually Vethio took most of the blame for the Misfits thing now. Most people think actually like Razork was sick there. If anything, it's Vethio started to develop. I think actually right now, because of the way the playoffs went, I think a lot of people did blame Humanoid more than they blamed Razork. The problem with that scenario as well, though, I will always say, is the roles make it really difficult to blame as an outsider. Like, classically, by the way, if you're the jungler who goes in, just like the support, you will die, so you will get blamed for the int. The mid laner, especially if they're a mage, listen, I'm a big fan of people like Froggen. You can always look not that bad in a loss as a mage mid laner. That's just the way the game fucking works. You can just choose to step out. You could, oh, sorry, I had to go back because they were going to flash them. You know, you have a million
I must claim.
There's a million excuses. The point is, your way of looking, that's why actually I have always thought that's the one part about people hating on Chovy I agreed with. It's not the idea he like ints or chokes, but if you look and you go, you didn't do anything in the big game, that is more like my angle for the mid lane, you know. So I think this time around, if Razork still has the same problems he has in this split, then they're just Razork problems, mate. They're not something to do with some humanoid disconnect for years, which, by the way, the worst thing about that storyline is it's like a soap opera storyline that went on for too long. It's like 4 years long or something, mate. Like, we could handle after 2 years. After 4, that gets boring because there was never any answers came from it. It was just the same thing over and over. So I feel like we're going to get finally like a real sense, like aggregate between it all and without those players of who Razork is. Like, I think to now, it's probably skewed because I always tell this story. When Razork was coming up from the RLs, I remember people telling me that no one actually hyped him by. They were just like, oh, he's the guy who just like fucking camps mid for, I think it was like Militia or something, right? Wasn't it? Like, yeah. I think they were like, he just camps mid for him. Whereas the joke is when you watch in the LEC, he's a very different player. Like, he's the fucking guy who's constant activity all over the map. So I'm very interested because this is a guy I think justifiably has been hyped, but I do also think he's had certain fatal flaws. But it's really hard in team games, especially like League, where the whole result of the win is based on how the team plays. It's not like individual scores in the same way we have in games like Counter-Strike where you could play your web bomb site great, but the other guy fucked up here. No, in League, it's really hard to extract a player from wins and losses. So I want to know who the real Razork is. I hope we're going to get to find out this split. Thoughts? Come on.
So, I'm kind of there with you. I think this is going to give us another bit of a window into Razork. And I think Razork has been a really good jungler in the LEC.
Sure.
He's actually been playing pretty well. I think when Fnatic have looked good, he and Mickey X have been this incredibly aggressive, sometimes over-aggressive duo that makes things happen, but there's been this disconnect and changes needed to be made. And they've gone with Humanoid. I think that's an understandable decision. We'll come to the decision that was made later on, but as it stands, that's the one that's come on. I will now be interested to see how Razork looks, though, because there isn't you can't necessarily hide behind excuses anymore, because if it goes wrong again, then you start to have to ask more questions. Because I think Razork, when you can play fast, Razork is great. if you're asking Razork to play slow, I don't think Razork has really got the best skill set for slow playing around objectives, around the map, and we've seen him overplay that before, and that's got them in trouble. And again, Mickey X adds into that because the two of them are very good at fast play, but we've seen both of them have the less good side of that when it doesn't work out. And I am now interested to see how this new look Fnatic works with that element in place, because the two of them together could cause a really cool thing for Fnatic, where they get to play the game their way with people there to back them up doing it, and that could give them a really cool identity playing in a really Fnatic way that should be really exciting, because I actually really enjoy watching Fnatic in the regular season, at least this split, and I think this should allow Razork to be more Razork, for better or worse.
Yeah, so I love that your point is like now your positive point is now we get to see the real Razork. We get to go and see,
the psychopathy unleashed.
But for me, like it's Razork frustrates me because I think in Europe we don't have infinite players that I think are capable of going toe to toe with the top Asian players, right? And I think Razork this year and last year has maybe not been that, but at the peak of his career, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 1.5 years ago, like this is a guy who, when he was playing at his very, very best, was completely unplayable in Europe. Like he was playing so well. He was like dominating every single game, and he looked like somebody who you could take to an international and who could do what Inspired does sometimes at internationals, right? But every single time we get to playoffs, he underperforms, right? And he, it looks bad against G2. It looked bad against G2 as well. Yeah, G2 as well. This time. But basically, and bad against KC as well, right? And I think at some point, this guy is somebody, he needs to show that he's not just a flat track bully. I think that he has the potential to be good, but for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to perform in playoffs. And the way that when we've talked about it on this show, I've always said is Fnatic need a performance coach, right? And who do they need the performance coach for? It's not Mickey, it's not human. Well, maybe it's a little bit humanoid, but it's not really humanoid. It's for Razork and it's for Oscar. But the thing which frustrates me the most is the split that Fnatic played the best. They had a really good performance coach. This is under Nightshare, the first split under Nightshare, right?
I mean, Nightshare's great, yeah.
Yeah, but basically they had the performance coach, and they had to cut budget, and the performance coach left. Okay, so then they've had 1.5 years of no performance coach, and now finally they cut humanoid, and now they bring in a new performance coach. And to me, I think that they should have just tried it with a performance coach. Maybe they can't.
Why does it have to be one or the other? I know.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they can't afford a performance coach with humanoid salary, right? Like I've heard that it's quite high. So maybe that.
You're saying it like they took him to the pawn shop and they traded him at fastest value, then used that money to get a performance coach. Okay, I see.
Yeah, sign another player for a quarter. Even if he's on 50% salary on the bench, they signed a player for a quarter of the salary, and now they have enough to get a performance coach, which might finally means that we can see the best of Razork. But for Razork, it's not about his ability. It's not about his ability, because I watched this guy play solo queue. I watched this guy play in regular season. It's just about the mental stuff, and you have to fix the mental stuff. And at some point, if he gets a performance coach this split, he has a performance coach this split, I hope that he is pestering this guy literally every week. I want my one-to-one with you this week. I'm going to work on, I don't really know what performs coaches do, meditation or whatever it is. But I hope that he gets his things fixed out, because to me, we've gone past the point where this is mechanical. This is clearly mental, and it clearly happens literally every split. And they don't go to Worlds this year if he doesn't fix it, right? Because now you've taken away your one consistent, in playoffs, right? So yeah, that's what I was saying, Razork. So yeah, hope that we see the real Razork this split.
I mean, I'll add on to that mental thing, because I think it is every time he gets to playoffs, guy panics or gets into a high pressure scenario and goes, well, what do? I engage, I make a play. And it's always a fast play, and just needs to have a moment where he or someone else on the team just says, take a second, we're playing this one slow, and someone listen to it. When you can play fast, great. But when it starts going wrong, when you're hitting game 4s, 5s, and you just need to not take the first angle you see, then we see Razork just brain off. And it costs them consistently. And a little bit of performance coaching on that, just in terms of some high pressure decision making, would do wonders for this guy.
And go on.
the one thing I always tell my players is trust your mechanics, right? Like, if you are a good player, you do not need to flip everything, because if this is a 55-60, 45 or 60-40, you will, if you are good enough, you will get another chance later, right? But that's the Razork we see in regular season, but it's not the Razork we see in playoffs.
And the traditional thinking usually goes, actually in all sports, that it is easier to convince an aggressive player to like be a little restrained at times, like pick your moments, than it is to get like a very conservative or defensive player to then like go demon mode and go all out. So the difference is this seems more plausible, it can actually work. But again, I will cede some of that. I've ceded some of this towards the later Poby discussion, so we can just tie it in. Now, here's the funny thing. We actually have an ad on this episode, which is cool. It is from Factor Form, which is like a type of like daily greens type drink. Now, what's funny is I am someone who hates vegetables. I am in a war against vegetables. My horror story wouldn't be zombies. Obviously, some Day of the Triffids shit where there's just vegetation taking over everyone. Maybe I become a vegetable at one point in time. Rick and Morty, jump the shark like this show has a while ago, whatever. So basically, I'm one of those people, even when I say I eat keto, I really just eat the carnivore diet, right? But I make myself have some vegetables at times, just because, guess what? I also go to the toilet, and that gets awkward if you don't ever eat any vegetables. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, just thank yourself. Thank the Lord you've never had to experience that. So basically, you do need to eat vegetables, one thing I've sadly learned. But I am the sort of person where we have actually, even in the past, had companies that do like greens and stuff, and it's like that. And the problem I always have is this: if there's even a tiny taste or a whiff of vegetables in there, my brain will just be like, not having it. And I'll find a way to avoid it. What's actually banger about these, I've found, Factor Form, is it's like they must have designed it for people like me, because they've intentionally done it where they've tried to make the flavour not be nasty at all like that, not have any weird like bitterness to it. They've actually done a really good job with like blending the flavours together, so it masks that aspect. And so as a result, this is actually the dream. I wish they'd had this when I was a kid, then I wouldn't have been sat at the fucking table like, I want to go and watch TV, and they're like, you have to eat, finish what's on your plate. I was like, well, we'll see. Let's play a game of chicken. And then the joke is that you actually just lose if you're the kid, because you haven't thought that through, have you? You just wait forever and you don't eat the food. So this is how you eat your vegetables. You actually can just get Factor Form. And what's brilliant is they changed the game in that sense, because actually they can make the flavour taste good even, which is mind-blowing, but it is true. And also, if you want to have something as like a daily thing, it has all the stuff covered in it. Like they say, one scoop delivers 100% of your daily nutrients. So if you don't realise, that's another thing. Most people out there who probably don't eat vegetables and don't pay attention to their diet, there'll be something you are deficient in. You're just not aware of it, unfortunately. In fact, you might not even be aware that certain things about your mood during the day is because you have a certain vitamin deficiency, or you're just not getting something in the rest of your diet and whatever sort of food. I know what gamers are like. You're all eating fucking pizzas and Uber Eats deliveries all the time. So this is also a great way to fill in the gaps elsewhere, much like a good jungle. I could have done a whole thing with vegetation and jungle there, but I realised everyone instinctively who doesn't play jungle irrationally, and to some degree justifiably, hates all junglers. So I didn't want to associate the product too much with junglers, because at the end of the day, some people say that role should be deleted and it should be a 4v4 game. But enough about, I don't know, people who play bot lane in Vitality. Insert the jokes. And then lastly, I also think it's a banger that they do this thing where you just sprinkle this in water and you just mix it up. And it isn't like making a big smoothie where it's all like, by the way, the texture alone of a smoothie, if you're not a fan of vegetables, will make you gag, mate. Like that. It's the worst thing ever is when you blend and then you see that little like, whoop, whoop, like, oh, mate, that's like some fucking nightmare fuel shit out of like a never-ending story kids movie or something. That's alive, mate. Get me away. That's not like this. You just put the thing in, the powder, you mix it up, it'll all blend in, it'll be nice, it won't be all thick and goopy, and basically it has everything you want: prebiotics, probiotics, adaptogens. These are all things, by the way, that help things like your gut health and stop bloating and all that jazz. Yeah, it's all excellent stuff. And so you can start your day right with Daily Greens by Factor Form at factor75.com/BDLS, Best Damn League Show. You will get 40% off plus free shipping on your first order. That's factor75.com/BDLS for 40% off plus free shipping. Factor75.com/BDLS. They just ask you to say it 3 times. So I did it. I did 3 times.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.